22nd of the 10th, 2025, and this broad from "16 years ago has managed to make me angry." This broad, slopey-eyed broad, as she called herself. Bonk first date, and I was reflecting back on her and how she would say, "So, your next task to impress me is this." But the thing is, in a few days' time I would check her profile again. She'd always update her profile. And she'd say, "Oh, I've got my favourite guys now. I've got my favourite boys who are impressing me. Yes, you've done," and she'd name them. She'd name the guys, and she'd say, "Oh, I'm very impressed by you. You stepped up to the task very well. You're all doing well in my boot camp, and some of you have fallen by the wayside. Oh well, who the fuck were these guys that were doing this?" Bearing in mind that they still had to pay tokens to do these things. They had to pay tokens, they still had to pay money, and also bearing in mind, very one-dimensional world, unless she was supplying them with photographs, because she had one picture up there of herself. I think she had one picture, not a good one. So, and back then, and this happened in 2008, back then, I don't think there would have been any voicing unless she gave them her number, and I doubt that. And she said, "You're going through my boot camp first, and those of you who make the grade, we go a step further from there." And it's like fuck off. It's would have been all one-dimensional, as in just typing and doing certain things. And so, very one-dimensional, and who the fuck were these guys? And she said once, "Your next task is to impress me, somehow." She said, "Go for it." And I'm thinking, so they're taking, what, an hour out of their time, 2 hours out of their time, 10 minutes out of their time, 20 minutes out of their time, typing this stuff up, and then they have to pay a token to, every time you do something on that freaking site, you have to pay a freaking fee. A few more tokens, and when is it her turn to impress them? Like, if I said to one of them, "When does she impress you?" they'd be like, "Huh? What do you mean?" "You've been doing all these tasks." "Yep, been doing all the tasks." "Has she impressed you yet?" "Oh, what do you mean? What do you mean?" "Oh, has she given back to you yet?" "Oh, well, I've done all these things and I'm in a boot camp." And I'd say, "Has she given back to you?" I reckon they'd be like, "Ooh." And because that's right, they're doing all the impressing for what? She was making all these demands. They'd seen what, one photograph of her? I'm telling you now, I'm telling you that she said, "Got all my favourite boys now, got my favourite guys who are impressing me. Those of you who fall by the wayside, oh well." And I wonder what happened when they eventually met up in person. When they actually met up in person. That's a whole different thing. Were there telephone conversations involved, or was it just they would have met in person? And how did it go from there? And I'm telling you, that would have been very different. Meeting up in person, and then I think some of them would have been, hi, and would have been some of the, and another of those, some of the interactions would have went, and it would have nasty situation. And let's just say she had 10 guys. The outcome of this was 10 guys. What is she going to do? Juggle them? Meeting up in person is very different. Meeting in person is very different. And when you give to somebody, they give back to you. And it seems like these guys were being puppy dogs, which I have been guilty of years ago. And then they impressing her. I know what their reply to me would have been. They would have been, "What are you talking about, mate? What are you talking about? I'm impressing her, trying to get there. To where? You full stop. Now, when is she going to get back to you? Oh, you're being weird, mate, you're being weird." It would have become a bit of a mess. She, I think at least 3/4 of the guys, you don't know if you get along with someone. You swap emails and all that, swapping emails, messages, whichever, whatnot. In person would have been very different. I think she was a nasty broad, and I think she just may have ended up with 0 guys. Because at some point they must have said, it's your turn to get back to me now. Hi y'all, this is a few days later, it's probably 5 days later. I have had a haircut. These things are slightly exhausting but therapeutic for me. They would have said that these guys would have said to her, "You're going to get back to me? I've been doing all the impressing here." She would have went, oh, I'm enjoying you doing that. I like it. I like all the attention. What do you mean? What do you mean? Get back. What do you mean? I like it. All the attention. The first thumbnail that YouTube usually give me is a really good one. And then it changes and I'm like, oh. I think it was a bit nasty. As were many of the other women on Lava Life. I read that book, The Rules of the Game. I read it. I read them both. Got me better at starting conversations. I was picking the wrong women for a long time. I went after the nasties. As a couple of my friends said, "Geez, you're going after, you're chasing the nasties for some reason." Message. I eventually got myself down to this formula. Meet them. And at one point it was 7 days later, message. If no response, 7 more days, message. If no response, 7 more days, last message. And my friend, he said to me, "Wow, by the time you messaging him, I've forgotten all about you." I said, "When should I message it?" He said, "Next day," while they're still on that high. And so what I would do around about 2011, 12, it was the year also that I was mostly sober. I started off very drunk. I sobered up. I was sober for a while. And out in the town, in Newtown and more, and in the city, and none of them were good enough for me. The women that I met, none of them were good enough for me. I would meet them, get their number, message them, and in fact, one lived just around the corner from me. And I text her the next day saying, "Hey, come over, I've got wine, let's listen to it." She says, "I can't." I said, "Why not?" I should have left it that really. She says, "I can't." Don't bother responding to that. And we can say, "I can't either." and then they can maybe make a short film out of that. And she said, I'm doing my parents' laundry, which has to be the most whack thing I'd ever heard. It was that for lame reasons, for just ridiculous reasons, that would be the number one. I've mentioned it to a few people and they're like, what the fuck? And they're like, well, that's a doozy. And I had, was there anything wrong with me back then? Well, I mean, I had a mental imbalance, which but no, the problem was them, that they were the problem. And I was sore about it for a while. I think we got into 2013 and I was a bit sore about it. I met, some nasties and some floozies, and I would message them, and the majority of the time that I would message, they wouldn't even reply. I'd say, hi, how you doing? It was really good to meet you last night. Would you like to meet up again? Nothing, not a dither, not a dada. And you know what? If even 3 of them had have said yes, my life would just be very different. I probably wouldn't have 5 books of poetry. I wouldn't have my short film ideas. My screenplay, my feature script screenplay would be different. And of course, I've become more handsome as the years have gone by. With my soulmate now, my lovely, amazing soulmate, happily for a decade. For a decade now, I've known each other longer than that. Bonk, first date. Oh, where is she now? Lonely and bitter, and went for all the arseholes. And those men that she gathered up on Lava Life, what happened to that? She met up with them in person, got along with 3 of them. That fizzled out to 1. By a period of 12 months, she was alone again. I'm just guessing, but there's a huge difference between emailing and messaging someone online and meeting up with someone in person, and I think that 4 or 5 of them met up with her in person, didn't get along, pretended to get along, didn't get along, found her to be too bossy, too high maintenance and demanding, whatnot. And then it went down to two of them, and then down to 1, and then after 12 months that was it. And for those who survived my boot camp, your boot camp, a humbug, your boot camp. Okay. And these guys, while in the boot camp, would have been spending numerous tokens, paying Lava Life. Wow, nasty. She's nasty. Yeah, that's what would have occurred. I'm surprised that dating site wasn't shut down years ago. So yes, this is a little therapy session for me, another therapy session.